You're
Stacey.
back
Yes,
again.
you can't keep me away from the toot or boot.
I love that, and I'm so thankful that I can't keep you away. You passed the audition. You're now in a regular guest spot.
Telling you, I was sweating it over the first one. I'm like, oh, is she gonna invite me back? I don't know. It's not to use toot or boot, but what did I hit it or did I miss it? In that one.
I tooted your guest spot, and so we're back again to
Nice.
talk about more things that we're seeing in the news. And we're going to start off with this one, which is taking a vacation from work may soon become mandatory. What do you think about this?
So hardcore toot for me, like major toot. So obviously we live in the US, which is known for, and I think there was another study I came across recently, which said the US is still the worst at taking their paid time off, right? Which was no surprise to see again. Hong Kong was one of the best. So I was like, very cool about that. But I just think like we live, and it's starting to shift. I think with early career professionals and Gen Zers who like value boundaries and their work life balance. So I'm enjoying that shift. But still, I think there is many generations in the workforce that fear taking too much time or don't know what to do with taking too much time. I like when I talk to people and they're like, I've never taken a 2-week vacation before, and I'm like, what? And then also having worked in industries where, they have, seasons which are very high stress and they're working 50, 60 hours a week and they can't take vacation off. I'm like, and managers aren't always doing a good job of saying you need to take time off. So, it's sad that we would have to introduce quote unquote mandatory vacation. But I think it's kind of a necessity. So people start learning, and then hopefully eventually it's not mandatory. But I think, this is probably more of a big toot for the US because I feel like Europe and other places, they don't really need that because, on average in Europe, you see people taking anywhere or getting anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks of vacation a year. And they're
gone for and
yeah.
by.
Yeah. And they are not saying, hey, I'm not taking it. Like all my friends in Europe are like, hey, I'm out. Like, and when I'm out, I'm out. And I think that's the other.
And they are unavailable.
Correct. They're disconnected. Correct. Yeah. Not like here where, you could be rushed to the emergency room and you're still responding to a work email,
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think I'm tooting like, yes, people take vacation. And I also kind of, to your point, understand like the cultural problem behind why this has to become a thing. And it's like the whole, quote unquote, quiet vacationing trend where people feel like they can't take off their vacation. And there's a reason that people feel that way. There's a reason behind people not taking off their time. And I think, a lot of that has to do with our culture around work. It has to do with, the sense of people saying like, well, I'm so slammed that sure, I could take time off and then I'm just slammed again. And it doesn't do like restorative thing that is what PTO and vacation is meant to be, right? So I don't know. I think it's really, and kind of along the lines of some of the other things we're going to talk about today, like this broader cultural in the US problem around work and how we perceive work.
Yeah, and I think it became worse again, frankly, during, not to use the overplayed word that is the pandemic, but it became worse during the pandemic, especially as people moved to remote hybrid setups. People felt like they were out of sight, out of mind. So they had to like prove themselves even more to their employer. And then also if their company was going through a layoff, they were scared if they took time off that could make them a target. So I think a lot of things, thoughts and feelings are playing through somebody's mind when they're thinking about whether to take time off. And those thoughts and feelings are pretty sad that they're even running through somebody's mind because you're just going to get to that burnout stage so much quicker otherwise, you know?
Yeah, and speaking of which, I think this kind of is a pretty good segue into the next thing that we wanted to talk about, which is the kids are not all right. Gen Z and millennial workers are struggling, and it's time for managers to pay attention. What did you think about this one?
So, I mean, so fundamentally, I agree. I mean, first of all, you can't ignore the stats. You can't ignore the research that was in here. It's all true. And just, we sort of hear this anyway. We hear this narrative, generally speaking, outside of the stats as well. I do think that some managers at this point, especially if they come from a different generation, they're not fully equipped right now to talk about some of these things. So I think some companies are doing a good job at like getting their managers at least things like mental health first aid
Yeah.
certification and training. And again, not so that you're not becoming a doctor, you're not diagnosing, but you're like spotting potential issues, right? And so I think we need to be actually doing more of that, finding interventions that actually help managers, because like if they don't know how, they can't do and support, right? So
Yeah.
I think that is a tricky part, and that's where the trickle down effect is happening, and
Yeah.
where people are starting to lose out. What I do appreciate about Gen Z folks, though, is they are really making it a point to say to employers, you know what, like my mental health is key. You need to support me with it. I need benefits that come with that. And hey, as somebody who thinks that everyone should go to therapy, like I am all about like this generation being like, you know what, this is what we need in order to like feel like we're supported in the workplace. What about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I mean, this is one I really grapple with this, and this is something I've talked about on LinkedIn before, where I trained as a therapist, and so I did not go on to get my license, but I did do the training, and I think that it's good that there is this heightened awareness around mental health, and like clearly, because once again the P word, the pandemic, like
Yeah.
it became a very big and noticeable thing, and everybody was struggling, and we haven't, I don't think we really addressed that, and people are still in survival mode and like recovery mode from that experience. But the challenge I have is like, this doesn't mean that managers can or should become mental health
Yeah.
professionals, right? They can't be diagnosing people. And I agree, like mental health first aid is a good thing that can be offered. Once again, I feel like it's this much broader cultural conversation around how, and I'm sure this is different in different regions of the world, like how we think about mental health, how
Yeah.
that is supported. And I think, to your point, like what kind of, especially as HR folks, what kind of benefits can we be offering? What kind of, mental health first aid training or other training can we be offering? Because I think it's a lot to put on managers,
Yeah.
kind of
Agreed.
expect that they can do all of this support when we're asking them to
Yeah.
do so many things. So yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm like, man, this is just part of a much larger conversation.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think, in the US, we do a very good job of mental health. We just don't.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I do agree with you wholeheartedly on the point that we can't use the manager population as a scapegoat for this,
Yeah.
or the new dumping ground in the way that HR has always been used as the culture fixer, or if
Yeah.
culture goes wrong, it's all on HR. Like that can't become the new narrative for mental health and
Yeah.
managers being the be all and end all. But I do think it's companies, to your point, and HR teams need to help provide the resources and tools so they can at least spot things right in the
Yeah.
workplace, and then hand it over to the right people.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the missing link. And I think we've relied on things like EAP and other things too long, and there needs to be other interventions apart from that. I
Oh
think at
yeah,
this point.
100%.
Yeah.
Which, all right, now we're just tumbling right into the next one, which I think continues this conversation. How care washing alienates employees. I thought this was really interesting.
I thought this was very interesting too, and I've not read too many pieces like this, so I was very much like, "Ooh, oh." I definitely would agree with the sort of the overall narrative of this article, because it's basically like, I mean, it's kind of like what we say about diversity, right? Like, if you're not like, if you claim to be a diverse organization, then put actions behind your words, right? And live your values. But it's the same thing in this article. If you claim to want to give people time off, flexibility, you care about their mental health, then show that. Don't have them working all hours of the night, right? Because it feels very performative.
Yes.
So, and people will eventually pick up on it.
Yes.
I think some people, especially more mid-senior career professionals who've worked in different environments, they will pick up on it quicker, probably, because they've seen, you know, where it's done right, where it's done wrong, you know, within their career. But yeah, this really struck a chord with me because I have seen this myself. But I'm curious, what did you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought you did a very good analogy about it in terms of the DEI thing as well. It's like anytime that you say as an organization one thing and people observe something else,
Yeah.
the cognitive dissonance around that grows because
Yeah.
they're looking at it and they're saying, okay, you said this, but here's the action. And the further apart that those things are, the more that cognitive dissonance grows within people. And ultimately, you know, they're like, okay, this is not aligning. So you're saying this thing, that is not my experience. And people recognize that. And so if you are kind of saying the thing, but your unspoken norms aren't really matching that. What expectations that you say aren't matching. Oh, we care about your mental health. We care about your well-being. You're just going to further alienate people.
Yeah.
So it's you have to be aligned in what you're saying and what your actions are. So.
Well, and I think then it leads to, you know, this concept now of misaligned burnout otherwise, right? And then people regret like their decision to join the company because they're like, wait, you claimed your values were X, but really they're Y, and I joined because they were X, right? So it just becomes its own vicious cycle from there. So I'm tooting the concept, but like booting the people that are being performative.
Yeah. We always have to boot the performative.
Yes.
The performative organization. So
get your stuff together, people.
Exactly. All right. So what we were kind of tooting most of these things, didn't we? I mean, we're tooting like the conversations around taking time off, actually bringing mental health to the forefront and being aligned in, you know, what you're saying and what you're doing within an organization that is actually supportive of people being able to take time off and being able to prioritize their mental health. So I guess
I think we're tooting that, but I don't know if you agree. Like I was saying before, I would at some point say though, I understand the need for interventions now, so it becomes part of, you know, part of a culture, right, and a cultural shift. But I would hate that if we had to continue to do some of these like mandatory interventions on an ongoing basis. Like for me, that's like this helps to get us to the right place, but I hope we don't need to be doing it sort of long term, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Sometimes I make sense, but not always.
But
you caught me on a decent day for Toot or Boot.
I appreciate that you are bringing only your A game to Toot or Boot.
You know, everyone else might get my B2C game today, but you're getting my A.
All right, Alex, thank you so much for joining me for Toot or Boot. And perhaps we'll see you again someday.
I mean, if I'm lucky enough to get invited again, I mean, yeah.
All right, bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Toot or Boot. You can keep in touch with me, Stacy, on LinkedIn, and be sure to subscribe to our newsletter at tootorboot.com. And if you're enjoying Toot or Boot, we'd appreciate your positive review on your favorite podcast platform.